Welcome. In this video lecture, I'm going to talk about the distribution of SKUs, which is the stock keeping units, using XYZ classification. And then we will combine this XYZ classification with the ABC classification in order to further classification of the SKUs. So as we know that in the previous lecture, that ABC classification is basically used when we would like to distribute the SKUs with respect to their dollar value. Okay, so that means with respect to their importance in the with respect to the high dollar value or a moderate dollar value or a low dollar value. Whereas in XYZ classification, we basically talk about the predictable sales or the predictable demand, or how steady or how predictable the sales or the demand of the SKUs. Based on that, we are basically classifying the SKUs into the three categories, which are X, Y, and Z. So the X category is basically those products or those SKUs which are those are having the steady and the predictable demand, or you can say the predictable sales. Whereas the Y category, that is known as the intermittent demand perspective, which means which having the less predictable demand or the intermittent demand, right? Whereas the Z category are those SKUs which are having the highly volatile or the difficult to predict the demand or the sales. So now the question is how we, which particular technique or the thing we can use in order to identify those SKUs which are having the steady and the predictable demand, or the less or the highly volatile. So for that, we are going to use a statistical techniques which is known as coefficient of variation, and the formula for the coefficient of variation is the standard deviation of the demand or a sales divided by the average of that demand or a sales multiplied by 100. So we will get the coefficient of variation of all the SKUs, and based on these SKUs, we are going to classify. Okay. So generally speaking, if the coefficient of variation is less than or equal to 15%, so all those SKUs are going to be classified as X category, which means smaller the coefficient of variation, more predictable, more stable the product demand, which means less volatile in the demand fluctuation, which means more stable demand, right? Whereas if it is 15% to 30%, so we can say that that is an intermittent. More than 30% would be considered as the Z category, which are having the highly volatile or highly unpredictable, or you can say that difficult to predict the demand. So for that, let's see the example. So this is the Excel file we have. So this is the data set we have. Okay. If you can see that I have basically taken the 8 products, and this is basically the monthly sales we have in euros. Okay, so for product one, a monthly sale in month one, month two, and month three. Okay, so in order to apply the XYZ classification, what we need to do is we are going to find out the coefficient of variation for product one. So in order to calculate the coefficient of variation, we need the standard deviation. So for that, we have applied this particular formula, standard deviation, and then we have picked this entire range, right? So similarly for the second product, right? So this is the standard deviation we needed in order to find out the coefficient of variation. So next we are going to calculate the coefficient of variation, which is the formula is standard deviation divided by the average of these products. Okay, so this is the standard deviation value of the first product divided by the average. Okay, and then you can multiply with 100 because I am considered taking as percentage, so that's why it is showing me the percentage. Now I have basically applied this criteria that if the coefficient of variation is less than or equal to 15%, okay, it should be considered as X category. So if the coefficient of variation is more than 30%, then going to be 30, or if it is 15% to 30%, then it is going to be considered as Y categories. So based on that, we can classify into X, Y, Z, and Y category. Okay. Okay, now if I would like to combine it with the ABC classification, which means first of all, I have applied the ABC classification of all my SKUs and then as well as the XYZ classification. Now I would like to know which of the high sales volume product, okay, or having the high dollar value and having the smooth demand, okay, which mean so we are further dividing the A category into the three categories, which is high value but the smooth demand, then high value but the seasonal or you can say the intermittent demand, high value, okay, with respect to the dollar value, okay, but the random or more fluctuation. Similarly, for the B category, so that is going to be medium volume but the smooth, medium volume but the season or you can say the intermittent, similar medium volume or means medium value basically over here is with respect to the sales, and then the random number same is the case C. So instead of applying only one kind of the classification which is ABC or a XYZ or a VED analysis, so basically we have combined the two classification and we can divide our SKUs into, instead of only three categories, we can divide into the nine categories. Okay, with respect to the two key parameters, one is the dollar value, another one is the demand fluctuation or the variability in the product demand or a sales. I hope you got the idea how we can apply the XYZ classification to distribution of the SKUs. So thank you so much. See you in the next video.